It's the There Is Another Way podcast from SpencerBruce.com. Making life work as a creative. Hello there, boys and girls. How are you all doing out there? I hope you are all doing exceptionally well. Again, given the particularly difficult times that we are all currently in all around the world. I hope you and your families are all safe and well and are coping and getting through the madness that we are going through at the moment. I hope you have enjoyed the last couple of podcasts. Once again, I'd like to put a massive thank you to our guests, Prebin, Gareth and Tristan. Absolutely fantastic guests. So much to take away. I really thoroughly enjoyed doing those interviews and was thoroughly inspired hearing the thoughts, opinions and journeys of our guests. I really hope that you guys out there found that useful and inspiring as much as I did. Anyway, back to a normal podcast at the moment. We've got a couple more to go before the end of this season when we will be taking a little bit of a short break, and then we will be back with more guests, which leads me to one question that I wanted to ask you. I would love to hear from you who you think may be guests that you'd like to hear on the podcast. So do head over to the Facebook group and leave your comments about who you might like to hear as a guest on the podcast, or who you think might be a real suitable candidate for someone on the podcast, and I will try and contact them and endeavor to get them on here as a guest. So here we are, and the title of this week's podcast is, funnily enough, There Is Another Way. Yes, it is the title of the podcast. And why am I just going to do a podcast on the title of the podcast? Well, we are all in this horrible situation together. And one of the things that I feel that I have felt happening over the last couple of months is seeing other people realizing that there is another way. There is another way to do many, many things, many jobs, many activities, many other ways of tackling life. Now let's put a caveat out there. We are not in normal times. There are a lot of people who are suffering. There are, unfortunately, a lot of people who have passed away, who have lost family members. I'm not at any point trying to make light of that at all. But at the same time, we have all been, on almost a global level, forced into thinking about things differently, thinking about how our work operates, thinking about how we visit our families, how we contact our families, how we contact our loved ones, how we deal with the groceries, and trying to look at all the negativity that's been going on and all the negativity that is constantly around us, because again, we are in an awful, unprecedented situation. The only positive that I can take from that is realizing that we as humans are on a whole relatively robust, and we do adapt. We do find another way, because there is always another way. Admittedly, that other way may not be preferable. That other way may be something which is harder. That other way may be something that you don't enjoy doing, but we do survive, we do endure. And out of that, I strongly believe, and I'm strongly starting to see, comes opportunity. I think for me, the wake-up call and the realization is that many things we do are not going to be going back to the way that they were. And that's a real shock and a real struggle to kind of come to terms with, that all the things that we took for granted before may not be happening. Now, thinking about my case scenario, one of my pots, we talk about the pots many times on this podcast, has been completely eradicated for the foreseeable future. That is the gigging pot, and a number of other bits and pieces have fallen through. So got to find another way. Fortunately, there are one or two other avenues that I didn't have all my income sources coming from one pot. And, that's something that we've talked about a lot on the podcast, is not fully reliant on one pot. It's about diversifying and having additional income streams until one income stream can provide you with more than you need at that point in time, and you can start saving and backing yourself up. One of the things I'm grateful for is that I managed to save up, the rainy day fund, and it looks like the rainy day fund might need to be dipped into, and that's always, something hard to come to terms with. But what I'm kind of getting at here is, forgetting about the financial side for the time being, is, when things that you do stop You have to adapt. And we've talked about this before on the podcast about adapting. And it's, I always don't think it's survival of the fittest, it's survival of the adaptable. And this is another instance where I believe that is a really important consideration that we all here, many of us are going to have to adapt. Even if we are in secure employment, even if we are doing things, we are adapting to perhaps working from home. We are adapting to not commuting. We are adapting to doing things online. We are adapting to going shopping maybe once a week rather than nipping down to the shops every other day. We are adapting to having to wear face masks. And to me, again, that is something which I feel is truly enlightening, because it shows me that this idea that I had for this podcast, the idea that there is another way, something that I've been kind of preaching for years and years and years, you kind of realize that if we were all put in a circumstance, we all find the other way. Maybe we don't all succeed at it. There is a difference, but we will find another way. And some of us now are going to be forced into finding that other way. What I really hope from this podcast, and especially looking back over all the episodes, is that you can see there is a sense of community here. There are a sense of people who are adapting, who have adapted in the past, pre-COVID, adapted to different working regimes, adapted to working for themselves, adapted to this lifestyle because they wanted to be in control of their lifestyle. And I'm relatively grateful at the moment, whilst there are a few issues in terms of income and job security. Being freelance and having your own business ideas does feel that I'm not carrying a burden of a job and the potential that I'm going to lose my job. I'm still nimble, I'm still on my feet, and I still have that ability to make changes. I'm not a big ship that it's going to take months and months to change, and it's going to be extremely painful, which is obviously what we're going to see perhaps with many companies, unfortunately, because, at the end of the day, a lot of big companies are only interested in their bottom line and not their staff. So there are going to be a lot of people, unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, made unemployed by this if it's not already happening. The furlough schemes, I can't speak for around the world, but in the UK are coming to an end. So we're going to see mass redundancies. And if I put a message out there to anyone who has been made redundant listening to this, is just believe in yourself, because this is a good opportunity to find another way to do the things that you do. There's going to be good times again. There always will be. And in this downturn, in this terrible crisis, there are people who are being successful. They are finding the niches. They are finding the things that people need right now. They're finding the value that people want, and turning those into small businesses, turning those into opportunities. And that's one of the great things about being small and nimble and for yourself, is if you wanted to go out and put out a range of face masks right now, if you can source the material and start getting it done, there are people who need them. There are people who want them. That's an opportunity. So being able to be nimble and change and find the other way means that you will be successful and not tied down by this. Now, I also realize that COVID is having a massive impact on people's mental health, and probably the last thing maybe some of the listeners want is going, well, you're all right, and it's all right for you to come on here and preach about things being all right, but that's not what I'm doing. I understand that if you're down, if you've lost your job, if you don't know what you're doing, if you haven't got the belief to try an idea, that it's really, really hard. But again, going back to how I started this podcast, if you listen to the guys I've had on, all the guys I've had on over the course of the whole podcast run, all of these people are making it work. To some extent, I feel that, if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I'm sometimes might be regarded as inherently lazy. I feel lazy a lot of the time. Doing this is hard work. It is hard work. It is possible. There is another way. And the other thing that's really been striking me recently is the fact that for years and years and years and years and years, actually, probably all my employment career, I've always thought that the way that we work is dumb. There's no other way I'm going to say it. It's dumb. It's stupid. I've gone on about this on the podcast many, many times before, about how I just don't understand how businesses and companies operate. I understand the model. I understand that there is a control issue. I understand that there is a trust issue, and that people like people in offices because they like to be in control and they like to know what their staff are doing, and that if they're at home, they'll be sat at home and they won't be doing any work. We've all probably thought that. But we know now that that is not the case. I've always argued, why do millions of people have to be in city centres in 1 or 2 square miles at 9 o'clock in the morning, clogging up all these offices, clogging up all these roads, clogging up all these motorways and trains and planes flying around? What COVID has really shown us. And again, I've been going on about this for years, and I feel like I'm being exonerated for my thoughts, where lots of people are going, oh, actually, this works. Of course it works. We've had the technology for many years, and the trust element has to be there. Those people who are lazy and not going to work are still at work, being lazy, not working, finding ways to spend hours having cigarette breaks and hiding out in the toilets and surfing online. You know, we've probably all done it a little bit from time to time. It's no different from being at home, but the thing is, you've got quality time. You've got all that extra time when you're not sat in traffic. It has a knock-on effect on the environment. It has a knock-on effect on so many things. Now, of course, part of my argument has always been that I don't say that you should never go to an office. This is not about we all just work from home and that's fine. I'm not saying that at all. I think that we'd all go mad. But what I'm saying is we can stagger it, have teams go in at a certain day, have satellite hub offices where actually you may not work with the people in your company, or you might work with 1 or 2 who live in the local area, but you go to a hub a couple of times a week and you still use the same technologies, the phones. What difference is it if you're like on a 6-story building? Do you ever, speak to the people in marketing or finance? You probably never ever see them, don't even know who they are if they're on a completely different floor. How is that any different to being at home? If you need to speak to them, you probably send them an email. To me, this idea of the way that we work has been ludicrous for the last 25 years. And again, I said it all comes down to trust in some regards. I had a really amazing manager at one point in my career, and his idea was he trusted us. He said, I'm your manager. I'm running the project. I'm the project manager. I know what tasks I'm setting you, and I know roughly how long they should take. If I set you a task that's due in on Friday, I don't care what you do. I don't care if I see you. I don't care as long as the task is done by Friday. And with that came a lot of respect. And I remember strongly there were certain people. There's one guy, used to come in at about 5 in the morning and then leave at 12. And, me being the opposite end, I would come in, roll in at about 11 and leave at about 8. So we're all doing the same hours. We're all doing the same thing, but it was so much more relaxed. There was so much more respect and things got done. I also appreciate that many people's jobs can't be done from home. There are jobs where you need to go to a place. There are jobs where you need to be somewhere. But I'm saying for the majority of the kind of office-based jobs, why are companies paying, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of £1,000s a month in renting these big offices when COVID has shown that it doesn't need to be that way? And I'm pretty sure that we will start to see a lot of companies selling off offices, maybe downsizing offices, having smaller offices where teams rotate on a weekly basis or something along that line where you'll kind of pop in. I strongly believe when they see the financial implications of that this will be an absolutely amazing thing when they realize that there is another way. We don't all need to be in these offices in a city centre. It will have an amazing effect, as I've said before, on the environment. It will have an amazing effect on people's mental health, on their relationships. It can only be a good thing. So for me, if we're looking at the plus point that's come out of COVID, it is people realizing that there is another way. Now, there is another subject I'd like to talk about, which is to do with universal income, which I've kind of hinted at in the past, but I'm going to save that for another podcast, because that also kind of feeds into where we are now and what COVID has shown us and how things may be in the future. I think, we've got to look at this as a time of great tragedy, of great suffering, which it no doubt is for so many hundreds, if not millions of people around the world. But we're coming up to the middle of July now, and I think we've been in a dark place long enough. I know I have. And I feel that it's now time for us to start looking at coming out of the hole and figuring out what the other way is, how we're going to progress in the future, and I hate this phrase, but what the new normal is going to be, what the new normal is going to mean to us, and where the opportunities lies for those of us who are trying to find the other way of doing things. Guessing a lot of us will also wake up after COVID and go, you know what, there's a lot more to to working. I want to spend time with my family. I miss my family, my loved ones. I want to travel more. All those things that, we're going to see opportunities, well, at least for those of us who are not in the UK, but we'll leave that one there, to explore and realize we can get by on less. We don't need as many things. We don't need to spend as much to enjoy the small things in life. So I just urge you to take 5 minutes to think about what you've learned from your COVID experience, what positives you've learned, what are the good points. We all know the bad points. What are the good points? I'd love to hear them. Please do head over to the Facebook group. There is Another Way podcast, and leave your comments, leave your thoughts. And again, going back to the beginning of the podcast, if you'd like me to try and interview someone, I will do my best. Please leave some names and suggestions. That would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, I am going to check out now. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all the kind comments on the guest interviews over the last couple of weeks. Really heartening to know that so many of you enjoyed those podcasts. Of course, please do tell your friends about the podcast. Please do share the podcast. And if you've a little favor from me, please do head over to iTunes and leave us a review. And I only want one of two reviews. I either want a 1-star or a 5-star review. Tell us a terrible or tell us that you enjoy it and it's great. Nothing in between. Will you do that for me? That would be really great. All it's left for me to say is please do take care of yourselves. Stay safe is the important word, the buzzword of 2020. Do take care of yourselves. I've been Bruce C, and I will catch you soon. Take care, my friends.